Computer. Here we go. Here we go. We're on. Okay, there's another person in the waiting room here. Okay, maybe we'll wait till 7:05 and then we'll right when it people in. Um, okay. Yes. So Kimberly, I saw you post about the Berkeley program, the summer thing. I've got two students who are interested in that this summer. One for the regular musical theater and one for the contemporary.
Yeah, I'm
So,
trying to get the 411 on on which program is the one for musical theater, or if people enjoyed the opera program. Um,
uh-huh.
yeah, and I have colleagues there that there or probably are going. So
Uh-huh.
I
Okay,
think
cool.
I'm sure one
Yeah.
of them. Yeah, right.
One of them is who?
One of the students here that's interested is Sophia, or she's
No, her mother just signed in actually in the waiting room, so she'll be here. But she's not doing that. And I've never heard of this Berkeley program, but I know Berkeley is so fantastic. It seems like a great program, so I don't know. Yeah, we'll see.
they're post transition. So they,
Yeah, yeah. They're in a transition, the school.
I mean, they were acquired. Boca was acquired by Berkeley,
Oh.
so there's yeah, they've merged.
Okay, got it. Okay,
That
I'm gonna
last.
start letting people in. And
Okay.
then I bet you a bunch of people will sign in late or, whoever. So I've got
Yeah.
two parents right now. I think one teacher, someone on the phone. So we will need to introduce positions. So let's see. Admit, admit, admit,
Did
admit.
Laurinda try to get back on?
Let's see. I heard a doorbell. So you hear a little sound. Okay. All right. Well, hello. Oh, and we've got some people connecting to audio. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our panel discussion for college auditions. If you need to mute or keep your video hidden, that's absolutely fine. We are a small group right now, but I'm sure people will trickle in. So that's great. There's plenty of questions we'll be allowed to ask. My name is Caroline. I am the president of NATS San Diego, and Dr. Katie Polit is here co-hosting with me. So, Katie, do you want to take it away?
Sure, I will take it away.
Okay,
As Caroline said, I am
I
your
will
vice.
pin you. Okay.
Thanks. As Caroline said, I am your NAT San Diego vice president, and I'm excited to be hosting a panel discussion on college auditions. So, our goal here is that students and parents and teachers who have questions about what's happening on the other side of the table at a college audition have an opportunity to ask their questions to real live college professors who are doing this every year. And we just finished 2 weekends of auditions at San Diego State University, which was very exciting and always puts all these good questions in my head about things I wish I could impart to everyone. And so with us today, we have Professor Elda McGinty-Peralta, sorry, just Elda Peralta, from Point Loma Nazarene University, who is the
Woo!
coordinator of the voice program there. We also have Dr. Travis Sherwood, who is our newest voice faculty member at San Diego State University and the voice area coordinator. And Professor Laurinda Nikkel will be back with us shortly. She had a small internet mishap, but she will pop back on here in a second. Who has been at San Diego State University as the voice area coordinator for 17 years now. So lots of audition experience here to help all of you. We're going to go back and forth. We've got a list of questions, but as the attendees, as you have questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. And Caroline and I are going to take turns moderating the chat and making sure that your questions get heard by our panelists. So, without further ado, off we go. And I'm going to start with a really very broad question. So, it'll give us a chance to know our panelists a little bit better and then what they think some of the most important things about auditioning are. So, in your opinion, panelists, what are the most important aspects of preparation for a college vocal audition? And you can pick maybe one or two points that you think really make people shine. It's a broad question, so you can share what you care most about.
Uh,
Elda, do you want to take it
yeah,
away?
Sure.
So hello, everybody. Just an honor to be here and just to be here and help with the knowledge that we have thus far on this topic. I would say in terms of preparing for a vocal audition, you want to showcase your strengths. And so pick music, select music that really shows what you're really good at and gives us a good picture of your range as well, intonation. I think I would say so. Definitely. I mean, there's so much actually that can go into it. But my first thought was just make sure as you prepare that when you're selecting music, that it's something that really showcases your strengths and that you feel comfortable with as well, that you're like, I could sing it in my sleep, as well. So that's just, I don't know, Travis, if you have anything else.
Yeah, I completely agree. The audition is certainly not the time to try out something that feels really new for you, right? I'm going to try out this. I've never sung this piece with piano before. Let me try it at my audition and see how it goes. It's setting yourself up for probably not the most successful audition. You want to make sure that it's repertoire that you feel comfortable with, you performed before, it's tried and true. For me in the audition, I really look for an artist who has something to say. They've not only learned, of course, all the right notes and rhythms and words and whatnot, done their work and studied their technique as best they can and worked on refining that, but they come in with an artistic perspective and they know what in the world they're singing about.
Yeah.
And they've found a relationship within their own life for that.
Oh, I love that. So, not something that you're doing for the first time, something you could do in your sleep, and then also making sure that you're delivering a message, that there's some intention behind what it is you're doing. Our third panelist, Professor Nikkel, just texted me that she is trying to get back on, that she's been momentarily booted from the internet. So we will loop her back in as we keep going. So thank you for watching out for that, Caroline.
She is back. She looks like she's signed back on, but we can wait maybe until she's set up here. Go ahead, Katie.
I was going to say this sounds like there's two things that I want to launch off into, and I'm not sure. Caroline, do you want to talk about what makes a great audition piece, or when evaluating an audition, what are you listening for?
Oh, I think that's a hard one. I think as a teacher, and I have a lot of high school students, which I love that age group, and it's really hard because it's hard to, sometimes they have a different idea of what they think highlights their voice, and sometimes you have to, and that's obviously the process of taking voice lessons. So I think repertoire is important. Also, you have to go within the guidelines of what the admissions process is saying for your thing. So in terms of the major program, like, so if it's classical voice versus musical theater, we know musical theater is usually a golden age and a contemporary piece, right? Something like that, something fast versus slow. So Elda, I don't know if you could speak to contemporary voice, but are the requirements usually like set to a standard like that?
In our case, so our first year, when you come, if you were to come to Point Loma, you submit as a music major, and so really what we have is music scholarship auditions, and that's where we get to hear, and where people that are interested in a scholarship, that's where we get to hear most of our incoming students as they're applying for that scholarship. And so there are requisites for that, but in terms of commercial music, like we hear it all. Like someone might come with a worship song, and they sing worship song, and then they sing a Italian art song as well. And so there's some contrast there. And so even if they're going into commercial music, we do get to hear a variety.
Okay, I have a question to piggyback right off that, and I will. Laurinda, are you available to chat? She might have left again. No, she's there. There she is. Okay, Professor Laurinda Nikkel. So if I am applying for an audition and I'm saying, okay, they want to hear an Italian aria, well, I'm going to pick the hardest aria I have. Does it matter? I think people get caught in it needs to be the best or the most secret. No one can know, but it needs to be a new musical that was premiered yesterday. And can it just be an Italian song, an aria? Can it be like The Sound of Music that's been done so many times before? Is that going to take away from the audition?
Are you asking me that?
Sure, go ahead. You can start.
I wasn't sure since you had just referred to me.
Okay.
I say absolutely not. Please don't bring the hardest piece of music. Bring the thing that you feel most shows your voice and what it can do, and not, some people say bring a stretch song. I don't think that's really necessary, especially if we're talking about younger singers coming in a graduate situation, maybe. But I would say for young singers, people coming in as freshmen or transfers, there's usually very few pieces required, 2 or 3 around there, and I would say there's not a room for a stretch piece in that number. So I remember being at a conference once. It was a NATS conference and this was a different level of singer than maybe we're talking about here, but they were the heads of several different young artist programs there, and they said, please don't come in with the aria with the most high C's, kind of thing. If you can sing us a beautiful Devieni non tardar with beautiful language and beautiful phrasing, we will hire you. Right. And I've certainly passed that along to my students too. Bring in a piece that shows what you can do beautifully, and it doesn't. If it's prepared well and it's musical and you're telling us a story, that's really what we're looking for.
So, piggybacking off of this discussion about audition repertoire and what makes a great audition piece, since you all have probably heard quite a few auditions recently, are there pieces that were sung or favorite auditions that come to mind? Something that someone might have performed that you said, wow, that was a great choice. And maybe that great choice is specific to that person. But is there something that sticks in your mind as like, this was a killer audition piece? And then what in your mind made it really great?
Again, are you asking?
Anybody who wants
How about Travis? Yeah, go ahead, Travis.
I can chime in if you like. Yeah, I again comes back to the idea of like it's a piece that the singer would connect with, right? It wouldn't be like the same piece would be wonderful for everybody. It's that they came in with a perspective and they wanted to show off maybe the diversity of what they can do, right? I think back to the countertenor who we had audition for us last weekend, who sang some classical repertoire and then sang some Whitney Houston. And I don't know that I'll ever forget that audition because I just was not expecting that at all. But both were sung at a very high level and with a lot of artistic intent. So to me, that makes it very memorable. And just to sort of piggyback on what Laurinda was saying earlier about how wonderful it is to bring in some of that standard repertoire, it's always important to remember if you're going to audition with a live pianist, not with a recorded track, that you're benefiting yourself if you bring in something that pianist might already be familiar with. If you try to bring in like the most avant-garde, obscure thing that you can find because you think, oh, this will set me apart from everybody else. If that pianist has never played that piece, then they might suffer through it. Right, they might have suffered through it, but that's not gonna help you give the best possible audition that you can. So that standard repertoire a lot of times can work in your favor, I think.
I can speak for that. Like I had an audition one time where I brought in an aria that was not very commonly done. And the pianist was like, literally, like I could hear them just scrambling. And I just kept going. And I was like, never again, But, at the same time, then you test them out. But yeah, if you can, I would say yes, like Travis said, something familiar as well will be good if you have someone accompanying you, or check, are you going to have time to meet with them prior to the audition? You might want to check for that. And if so, then, that also will inform what type of piece, what selection you go with.
I would say too is ask those kinds of questions. I think sometimes people don't think that they're allowed to, that, the very first thing I would say is go to the website of every school that you're going to sing for. We're shocked sometimes at people who, and look for what is the repertoire requirement. Go to find your instrument, find your voice, read that. We get a lot of repertoire showing up that isn't what we've asked for. And that tells us something right away about how do you follow directions, kind of thing. Is that going to keep you out of a program? Probably not, but it tells us something about you from the beginning. But ask those questions. Who is the pianist? Can I meet with them before? I'm sending my music. Did you receive it? All that kind of stuff. Go ahead and be that little fly, in the ointment, whatever. That just shows us you really care. Oh, Katie, you were mute there.
Oh, sorry. And then we know who you are when you arrive. I said that doesn't hurt.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think people, that's really comforting to know that you guys will, or the panel, whoever it is, will see the potential, even in a simple song they hear every year, as opposed to something that doesn't have to be hot off the press or something written for your voice, right?
Going in this direction, I want to ask the panel, the entire panel, when you're evaluating an audition, what is it that you're listening for? Are you thinking about preparation, technique? How good of a musician are they, their languages? And then a second part to that question that we can get into is, how does this change when you're listening to different styles of music? How does your evaluation of the singer shift with a new style? Anybody want to hop on?
Well, I'll hop on.
Thanks, Travis.
Yeah, of course. I don't know. It depends on what level of singer, in terms of experience, you are evaluating. It definitely changes, right? If this is a high school student who is auditioning to be a freshman, then your expectation is different than somebody auditioning to become a graduate student, right? When you're the high school student auditioning your freshman year, you're listening for potential, right? Like you're not listening for, is this person ready to go, sing on the great stages of the world tomorrow? You're listening for potential in terms of all of the things that you just mentioned: technique, musicianship, languages. No, of course, we don't expect all of your languages to be perfect before you come in as a freshman, right? Your expression, what is it that you have to say, and what means do you use to express that? And to me, I think that's, regardless of the style, I'm listening for all of those things. I think they all come across in a different way, right? The technique that we're going to use when we are singing more of a CCM style versus variation of musical theater, whatever that means, because musical theater is such a broad category, right? And then classical, it's going to sound different, but the structure of what we're looking for remains the same.
What would you say, I'm sorry to interrupt, what would you say to people who say, okay, great, but it's so competitive. This school that I'm applying to is so competitive. I need to be professional already.
Is that
cool?
Yeah, I was going to say, is that the right program for you then?
Right.
I would question what school. I mean, I know what you're talking about. There are programs, especially maybe more so in musical theater, who are expecting at that age a higher level of accomplishment, and as far as a resume is concerned, and what have you been involved with. But I would, if you can sing, if you're talented, if you bring those things, I don't think that that's going to keep you out of the running. And you can only bring what you can bring. I mean, bring your best. Mm-hmm. And if you can't, I mean, yes, of course, the school and the panel and all these entrance programs are comparing you to everybody else, but you can only be you, and you're the only person that can bring you to us, to the stage. And continue to tell yourself that no matter how many millions of other people are auditioning at the same school, nobody is you.
Right. Thank you for saying that. That's so important because I think that there's a forgetting that at the end of the day we want to be entertained too if we're on the panel. We want to be told a story and be taken to a show. And if you can show up and show your love of singing, that's really wonderful. You don't have to be you cooked, so to speak.
Yeah.
You want to move on to the next question, Katie, if you
What was your second part of your question, Katie? I don't remember.
What was that?
What was the second part of that other question you did?
How, when you're evaluating, how does that change? How does your listening change based
Oh.
on the style? So if they're bringing in a classical piece and then perhaps a musical theater piece or a commercial music piece, what changes in what you're listening for?
I kind of agree with Travis in that we're looking for the basic tenets of healthy, good singing and of people who have made some real choices about their storytelling. That's what I think a lot of people miss, um, especially in the classical world, is that yes, if you're going to sing something in a foreign language, please, please, even if it takes you hours at I always call this kitchen table work, where you're sitting at your kitchen table and doing, you're translating. Please know every single word and tell a story with that in a foreign language. Otherwise, yes, we can say, oh, that's decent Italian, but um, you don't have to be fluent in Italian if you sing Caro mio ben. But please know what caro means. Please know what mio means. Please know what ben means. That is, anyone is capable of that. And I think we seeing you make the effort to do that kind of thing, that matters to me when I'm listening to somebody for the first time.
Yeah.
Also piggybacking off of this, what you're listening for when you're evaluating a singer, is there something that if the singer does not possess it is a deal breaker for that singer? Is
great
there
question.
something that if they come in and they don't have X, Y, or Z lined up, you kind of say, oof, I don't know.
Like if a musical theater auditionee doesn't have a great belt, they can't belt.
That would not be a deal breaker for me. Especially, I guess what I would hope is that they were bringing something in that didn't require them to belt. There's still a lot of music that doesn't require a belt. Even some of the Golden Age where revivals are having a different kind of mix, that kind of thing. But I would just say, sort of, I mean, do your homework, do your research in, what kind of mix is, was originally this piece written for, and what are other people doing with it today. But belting is something that's learned.
Mm-hmm.
That is a very complicated technique, like anything else, like singing on an amazing high C. So if that's not something that you've got in the bag, I teach graduate students in musical theater, and we're always working on all of those things. Nobody's coming completely cooked, or I wouldn't have a job.
We'd all be out of a job. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
I
would
think-
say,
Oh,
oh, go
sorry.
ahead.
Go ahead, Elda. It's all you.
I would say it's just preparation is key, and then it's just, it breaks your heart when you've have this time that you're devoting, that your sole attention as the faculty or as a panel is for this person, and sometimes they get there and they're like, I don't know where my music is, and oh, the copies are not good, or just they have to run out to get something, and then it's just like, you don't know your song, or so those things, it's like, oh, okay, so does that mean that this is something we're gonna have to be dealing with? I think there's grace for where we're all at. We're all in process. All of us are in a process. Even those that have had, I'm like, people say, well, you're an expert. I'm like, I just have more experience. That's all. And so I'm handing on to you my experience. That's what I want to share with you. But I'm still growing. I'm still growing in my singing. I'm testing new things out all the time. And so when we're looking, I feel kind of got off on a tangent there, but I would say preparation. I always look at that, and when someone just like doesn't feel like they took it seriously, it's it's you're like, oh, I don't want to think that, but it makes me go, oh my gosh, what's it going to be like, in the future working with this person? Like, are we
Right.
able to rely on them and then represent our school or our studios? Or, so I would say preparing goes a long way. Even if you're like, we had a student recently that saw that we wanted, preferred repertoire was something classical. And so she picked out something in 2 weeks, one of the 24 Italian art songs, had never sung it before, got together with a coach and then sang it. And I was just blown away with the amount of preparation. She sang an original song, contemporary commercial song, and then turned around and sang this one of the 24 Italian art songs, and it was gorgeous. Like, really solid head voice, solid, just pronunciation, the diction, and the whole panel, all the faculty were like, "Wow! Like, okay, in 2 weeks you did that. I'm impressed." And so it really left a mark for all of us. So I say, even if it took a little bit of time, or they only had a little bit of time, they did the preparation, they put in the work, and that spoke a lot. That a lot.
We're on this topic of preparation and how you could be best prepared for this audition. What are some things that could go wrong? What are potential mishaps that could happen during an audition? And then how could one prepare to stay on track if one of these potential mishaps were to happen? Like, oh my gosh, I didn't have my music, or oh my gosh, I didn't prepare the right thing, or I'm really sick, or oh no, I forgot all my words.
I would start by saying to every student, expect that something will go wrong.
Hallelujah. Yes.
Something will. We're human beings. We're thank God back into the a lot more of live auditions. So the videotaping has been a life-saving for us, but it's not the same thing as being able to, what you bring in that moment. In a video, you can, okay, no, take 27 of this song until we get it perfect, and that's not really how music happens on a live stage. So expect that something will go wrong, and know that as a panel and when we're watching you, at least I guess I can only speak for myself, it matters more to me what a person does with that mistake than that they didn't make a mistake at all. If you stop and break down in tears, which of course is what you feel like doing, then I'm going to know maybe not quite ready for this. But if you can just say, okay, I'm going to keep going no matter what, even if I have to la 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 all the way through the rest of my song, just that will show us that yes, you can deal with a mistake and continue to sing and continue to finish the song somehow.
Absolutely. I mean, memory mistakes, it happens, right? It's happened to all of us singers who have performed for memory. But I think really preparing to perform from memory is very important. And there are steps that you can take for that, working out of your score early in the process, right? Even while you're practicing, even when you're maybe not quite fully memorized, stepping away from the score and singing as many phrases as you can, just off book, and then realizing where your memory is. I found a lot of young singers sort of wait until the audition or until the performance before they really actually close the book and put it to a place where they can't see it. And that's the worst time to test out your memory, see if it's really there, right? So like let yourself make all of those mistakes throughout the learning process. Use your voice lessons, if you're lucky enough to study privately, as a great opportunity to test out memory and see, in front of your teacher, and when maybe they make you sweat a little bit, and see if you can perform it memorized from there. And if a memory slip does happen, you recover as best you can and keep going. We're not looking for perfection in a live audition. It's just not realistic.
What happens if you crack? Does that mean you will not get into any school if you have a voice crack? Well, I
No.
mean, so many people. Well, in my own teaching, and this is a tangent. If someone's singing and they crack, like, oh, that was so bad. It's like, we're in rehearsal with other professional singers. I don't know, tenors crack all the time. It's part of being a tenor. I mean, we all do it. It happens to professional singers. The people who are going to understand the most are the audition panel, right? Is that the case? Right?
And I remember
Just empathy for
that
singers.
Right.
somebody brought, I don't know, when you're sitting around at parties, people have all these crazy videos, whatever. And I remember somebody bringing a video of Christina Aguilera when she was pretty young. What was the first Disney World, the cover that she did?
Mulan,
Mulan.
reflection.
Yes.
Oh, even before Mulan, I think. Anyway, it was a song that had a big belt note at the end, which of course most Disney songs do. And this was a video where she cracked at least 20 times. You'd get to the phrase and it cracked. You'd get to the phrase and it cracked. You'd get to the phrase and it cracked. And finally on 21, she hit the note. So that's a pretty high level, but that's a pro who cracked over and over and over and just kept trying.
What happens if you're really sick? If you come to your audition and you are ill, or you wake up and that voice is not there, what should somebody do? What's the best way for someone to handle that? Because that's a mishap, I think, that's very realistic, especially in a live situation, winter time.
Well, I think the feeling on that has changed a lot since COVID. It used to be sort of like, power through, and we give you brownie points for that, and it's really changed, quite honestly, I think, for the better. And so if you really are ill and you cannot sing, or if you think you might be contagious of something, then please don't come to the audition. Please just communicate with the university and say, I'm sick, and if they have another audition date, or they can hear you on a different day. Most universities will accommodate that if they can. They will accommodate a live audition on a different day. They will find a time for it. Or if they'll accept videos that you have either recorded in the past, or you will record once you are healthy again, and you can send those instead. But I think take care of yourself first, and being sick is not something that would be held against you as a potential student. For me anyway.
Well, and if we don't know a singer and they show up and sing sick, and if we don't know you, we won't know the difference between, okay, is that just how they sing, or is that just because they're feeling under the weather today? And I used to just say, if you are sick and you decide to go sing, don't announce it ahead of time. If you can't sing around it, then don't do the audition. I think that we show, but it is, I've also had students who have flown across the country to audition for a certain school and spend all this money and then get there and they're sick.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, what do I do? And I have also advised them is to show up at the audition and say, I'm here. I'd like to meet the faculty maybe, but I'm sick and I can't, I really can't or should not sing. If that's the case, if you've spent a whole lot of money and you're, rather than just go home.
Right.
I don't know. I guess it depends, on the situation.
Yeah, I know. I would say that it's hard because some people will get a little tickle in their throat, and that is enough to make them think, well, I can't sing. And usually, a tickle in your throat, you can get past it a little bit. So I think you should know thyself.
Yes.
I wanted to ask a question. This is a little bit of a change, but about, is it okay if I ask the question, Katie? I sent it to you in the chat. Okay, about audition attire. Audition attire, right? So this is a widely changing perspective, and I know for the classical audition, I mean, some people might want to audition in a gown. What about versus the contemporary audition versus the musical theater audition? What is appropriate attire?
Mm.
This is quite the topic.
Yeah.
Elda, do you want to go first? For a contemporary, like what, I mean, what do you guys want to, or see or not see?
I would say even with my current students, like if I have students focusing on commercial music and they're performing, let's say at a department recital, I would say think of it as a wedding gig. What would you wear to a wedding gig? You maybe it is all black, but you wouldn't necessarily. It wouldn't be casual. But it's maybe a little bit more smart casual, or even business casual, or so. Just think of it in that. And I think you can be creative in adding your own flair here and there, but I would definitely stay away still from just casual for an audition, or think of it as an interview as well. And I hope that helps. But for commercial, I would say wedding gig. It has been my go-to, and it seems like that's something that kind of it's not. It's not you're doing just playing on the sidewalk. It's a little bit up a notch.
Okay, so obviously people want to be comfortable. What about for musical theater? If they're singing a certain role, do they need to dress like that role? Or do they need to, I don't know, that might be a crazy question. No?
Laurinda, you wanna?
Well, this wasn't musical theater, but I remember because I lived in LA for a while and sang with the opera company there, and was called into a couple of auditions for like TV things. And there was a show and they wanted to have a scene from Madame Butterfly, and they wanted we of course they weren't going to really use our voices, but they wanted singers that would be mouthing and physicalize what it was like. And I showed up and I was the only one not in a kimono. And I was like, oh boy, I certainly didn't read that one right. I was in my own clothes, but yeah. So you asked, do you need to dress the part?
Like if you're singing an ingenue role, can you not wear a pants and a blazer if you're doing like I know because coming from an opera background, sometimes that's in the background. Oh well, I'm singing this, so I need to wear this.
Let those wear pants. I don't
Yeah.
think that's necessary. I will say sometimes I, I don't, and I don't mean this in any way specific toward anybody, but sometimes the panel doesn't have a lot of imagination. So should you wear, a braid if you're singing Micaela or something like that? No. But I would also, I guess I wouldn't dress opposite of the kind of repertoire that you sing, or because then you're playing against, what people see and what they hear are very
Hmm.
different, and that can be confusing. But
Okay.
I don't think you need to, you know, that would be my opinion. I would find that a little odd. I think if somebody walked in kind of in costume, I
Right.
guess it's interesting.
Right.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, thank you. I love that. I'm gonna borrow that wedding gig.
Yeah, I
That's a
think
great way to say it. Yeah.
Definitely not casual, although I've seen a lot of students have a lot of different opinions of casual and not casual. So
Yeah.
we end up getting very specific at school sometimes, like no tennis shoes or
Right.
flip-flops. That's my one, like, that's a deal breaker for me.
flip flops.
Yeah.
If you wear flip-flops to your audition, yeah. No, if you can sing, I would be still, but that don't do that.
I wanted to circle back to something that Caroline brought up a little bit earlier. She was talking about a program that accepts 5 students. And then, Laurinda, you said something really wonderful. You said, well, then is that the right program for that student if you are putting yourself up having to be professional already? So I wanted to know how students can go about finding or making sure that the program they're applying to or programs that they're applying to might be aligned with their goals. how they're going to find the best program for them and their development and where they are.
I think I mean, do your research. There's so much information that you can find just on the websites that's going to give you you can look at the curriculum, you can see what their acceptance rate is, you can see who's on the faculty there and what they've done, and how much teaching they do versus how much performing they do, you know, and decide like where you are in your life and your experience and what you need from there. But then also ask a lot of questions. And I think the most valuable thing, if it's possible, is take a sample lesson, right? Take a sample lesson with faculty. You can learn so much from that, and it can be a Zoom lesson if they live far away, or it can be an in-person lesson if that's possible. And I mean, in my experience, most faculty welcome that. They're willing to give a free 30-minute sample lesson. And I know that I'm always happy to do that. And that also works to your advantage in the audition as well, because you've now created a relationship and a rapport with somebody. And if they liked working with you in that lesson, and they would like to have you as a student and would really like for you to be in their studio, then you have somebody in the audition advocating for you. Not just based on your audition, but based on their experience of working with you as a student. And they are advocating for you for acceptance and scholarship. And I don't think there's anything more powerful than that, than having somebody on the committee say, no, I want this person here because I've worked with them. I know what kind of student they're going to be.
And I would add to that, and I'm not saying that this has happened a lot of times, but it has happened a couple of times. If you take advantage of that, which I agree is a hugely smart thing to do, come to those lessons also prepared. Because that can also play against you if you are not. If you're like, oh, I'm not sure what I'll sing for you, that kind of thing. I thought we would just vocalize. I prepare something, because that tells us something about you as well.
Absolutely. And write down your questions that you have about the program. There is no shame in walking in with like a list of questions, either on your phone or on a piece of paper, because you know you're going to get in that lesson and get nervous and maybe forget what you wanted to ask. Walk in with prepared questions that you want answers to about the program and about the experience that you're going to get there. That level of preparation is just, I don't know any voice teacher that would not love that. They would eat that up, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, sorry, go ahead, Elda.
No, I was just going to say everything they said. Thumbs up.
Okay,
Yes.
yeah. So how would you advise students to go about parsing through different university programs with their parents? Like, I know that there's so many fabulous schools that are state schools. There are so many fabulous schools that are conservatories. What's the best advice you can give for kind of looking as to where you would want to apply? It's overwhelming these days. I know with the Common App alone, where you can apply to 30 schools at once, it's just overwhelming right now what these students are going through in terms of the amount of options. Is there a certain set of questions that you would lead them down that you could maybe speak to?
So this is the question that they would ask of their parents, or
like as they're going through the process, how would you guide a student through looking through what programs are the best for them?
Okay.
You know, like what should they apply to? Should they apply to us? What can they get? Well, they can get the same thing here. What's the difference?
Maybe it's old fashioned, but I still I'm advising people more on grad schools. I guess most of the if I in college, and so either they've already come to us and made those decisions, or they're going on to another school. But is to sort of pick, and this doesn't originate with me, but sort of pick 3 tiers. Pick your pie in the sky schools, and I got one of my baritones who's in Juilliard right now, because he is like one of the people who really took that literally and said pie in the sky, where I would have never, recommended that, but he really took that literally and went and did the audition and is having a wonderful time there right now. But a middle of the road, I would say that was the preponderance of your number of schools is looking. I'm not at having specific information, but finding really great programs, places that you would love to be, and then maybe a couple of what we say safety schools, and that sounds kind of derogatory, but even your safety school to say this would still be a place where I would absolutely learn and it would prepare me for the next step in my career. And so if you can sort of say, okay, how many schools can I think when people audition for like 15 schools, that is just so much, it's not manageable. I
Right.
would say
Yeah.
less. Yeah, go ahead, Travis.
No, I absolutely agree. And I think look at the full picture too. I had a mentor who always used to say, like, get the best training that you can afford, right? And I think that that's really good advice. And so if it's a more expensive school and they do have scholarships available, then by all means, go for it. But you want to make sure that you are auditioning for schools that in the end you will be able to afford to go there and complete the degree there, ideally as well, not just afford a year or something like that. But also then, college is this, I probably shouldn't say this as a professor, but it's more than just going to classes and getting an education in the classroom. It's a whole experience, right? Like it's like the whole social experience that you have for or maybe more years, depending upon how long you end up being there. But so think about that too. Like, what are you looking for? Do you want a small school, small program? Do you want to go to a large university that, well, maybe there's a smaller like music program where you'll get some individual attention, but you get to have that big university experience? Yeah. Do you want a university that's going to be in more of a rural area because you feel more comfortable there, or do you want more of a city experience? Right. I think that's part of the consideration as well. And then particularly for performers, I don't know, you always want to look at what other degrees they offer in addition. Like, do they have a massive graduate program and doctoral program? Right. And if the university does, and you're hoping to maybe get roles as an undergraduate student, then chances are you probably won't. Yeah, that those main stage roles are probably going to go mostly towards masters and doctoral students, and so maybe you want to look at that and just try to measure how that works with your goals.
That's really smart to know yourself as far as I think where you're going to thrive. I think something that's often hard for students to parse apart is prestige from what's going to help me the most. So, like, I see many young singers say, like, I want to go to the very best program. But that very best program may not necessarily be the very best program for you. So I think that's really wise that you said, you're going to be in a city, in a rural environment where you're going to grow, that it is a whole experience. Absolutely. Speaking about that, this is a little bit of a segue. I know you're talking about master's, doctoral, and undergraduate, but I wanted to take a moment to ask you all what kinds of programs that your schools offer. I know, we're talking about local performance, but we have a lot of different degree tracks at SDSU, and with those different degree tracks come different curriculum. And so how do students start to get through all those different offerings and decide what it is that they're going to apply for?
Well, one of the things that, and this is the hope anyway, and sometimes you have to do a little more digging, but with the onset of websites and all that kind of thing, there's a lot more information that's more readily available. Most schools will have a department handbook, or a music department handbook, or a theater department handbook, that will show you that curriculum. Well, it will say, these are all the classes that you are going to be required to take for this major. These are the classes you'll be required to take for this major. And it's extra work, but I think it's well worth it, because then you start to see where your time is going to be spent. If you're going to a CSU, for example, you are going to have an additional, a lot of general ed classes that you are required to take, as opposed to if you're going to a conservatory where you aren't probably going to have that much. So know also, how do you want to be educated in life? Some people feel very strongly like, okay, I want to know how to do more than just sing. I want to have an understanding of history, and I want to have an understanding of literature and languages and all that kind of thing. And that's what you're going to get more in a liberal arts program, or in a place that asks you to take more GE classes. But you can find a lot of that on the website. And if you don't, again, don't be that person who's afraid to ask questions, and literally send an email to somebody on the faculty and say, what kind of programs do you offer in the vocal area? And how could you briefly describe them, if you don't feel like going and looking at all those class requirements?
I think also for me, visiting is so good. Visiting and like going to the dining hall, looking around, like how do you feel there? It could be the best. It could have been your pie in the sky school, your dream school, and then you get there and you don't feel good about it. All of a sudden, you've got a bad vibe. And then one of your middle of the road schools all of a sudden is your new pie in the sky because of that connection with someone there. So going to visit is, for me, is like, I mean, just so visceral, you know?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Elda. Go ahead.
Absolutely. I was just going to jump in to say that in my experience, I'll just share in terms of grad school, but I chose grad schools based on who I would be studying with. And so I took those sample lessons very seriously. And actually, one of the things that happened is when I went to audition, I took a sample lesson with a professor, and I was like, nope. I thought, you know, I had them like, oh, they're a great, you know, they have a great reputation and their students are very successful. And then we worked together, and there wasn't anything wrong with the person. I just was like, I don't think we like match personality wise. And so I couldn't see ahead. I would say I couldn't have vision for how it would look like in the next few years. And I can say that, you know, where with the teacher I ended up studying with, it was just like, I felt at ease. I felt like I could be myself. I didn't have to, you know, kind of put a persona or anything. And so even in undergrad, although you don't often choose mainly based on who you're studying with, you know, it's the same thing when you visit. And can you see yourself there? Can you see yourself hanging out in the lobby of the music department, you know, as well? Or, I don't know, in our campus, you know, watching the sunset after in the cafeteria, you know, or during your lesson. But just like things, I would say, see where do you have more vision? You know, where do you see yourself 4 years down the road? Do you see yourself there still, as well? And so I think that's important also to consider.
Well, and I would say, if you get,
oh, sorry, go ahead, Laurinda.
if you have the chance, try to meet some of the students. Students will be very honest with you. We are hopefully being honest too, but you know, we kind of have our sales pitch, but we very purposely at our auditions put our students out in the hall and have them be door monitors so that they can chitty chat, you know, and you can sort of say, okay, what kind of people go to school here, and what kind of, interestingly, I would say, and you guys jump in, we often will say, do you have any questions for us? And one of the most asked questions is like, you know, what are your students like?
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think that's important to people. Are they nice people? Are they really super competitive? Are they, you know, do they make friendships? Are people respectful of other ideas here? That kind of thing.
That's wonderful. That's really wonderful. Is there? Yeah, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, in terms of like deciding which degree you want to pursue, because we all offer various degrees at our institutions. You know, like has been said many times, don't be afraid to ask questions. And I think the best way is to have a conversation with the voice faculty and say, these are my goals in life. Like, this is what I want to achieve. These are my dreams. Which degree do you offer that is going to help me achieve this? Like, which is going to be the most streamlined process to me achieving these dreams? We can say, like, go online and read our curricula and stuff like that, and that's very good advice too. But I think back to when I was in high school. First of all, I couldn't go online and read curricula at that time. But I don't think I really would have understood what that was if I was like just reading a list of classes.
Right.
And I was the first person in my family to go to college. And so I didn't really, like, my parents wouldn't have a familiarity with that either. Like, there was nobody in my household that could really help me with that. And so if you're coming from a situation like that, then just ask questions, send an email, or schedule a Zoom lesson and or an in-person lesson, and have those conversations. And don't feel foolish because you don't know the answers to those questions already. It's totally fine not to understand our programs, and not to know which degree is going to help you achieve your goal.
Right.
Elda, I'm circling back to you talking about your formative sample lesson that you had when applying for graduate programs. Because we have a question in the chat from Mary Jo Gleason, and Mary Jo wants to know what timing is appropriate for the sample lesson. Is it during your junior year of high school? Is it the summer before your senior year? This looks like someone who's asking specifically about undergraduates. When's a good time to take your sample lesson or to reach out to a faculty member about that?
That's a great question. I typically we have, at least in my experience, I have people that have that are getting ready to apply, just a few months from applying or in that senior year. But I wouldn't be, if you're a junior in your second semester and you're already looking ahead, I don't think I would be opposed to spending that time as well in that sample lesson. So I definitely say I would probably, as a high schooler, junior or senior year.
Great. Any different advice from our other panelists?
I think it's an intentional, like, reach out, schedule sample lesson. Junior or senior year is great. If you happen to attend a choral festival or something at the university, and as part of that festival they offer lessons, like I know that we do at SDSU, I know a lot of other institutions offer that, then whenever you're there, like, just take a lesson. It doesn't matter if you don't have to wait till your junior senior year. If you get the opportunity, like, develop that relationship with the faculty in a positive way early. There's no problem with that. But I think if you're reaching out specifically because you're thinking about auditions, then yeah, probably waiting until junior or senior year is smart.
I once had a sample lesson with someone, I think was a sophomore, and it felt a little far out, but it was someone who would strike me as very prepared too. But I think the closer to your audition too, does that make a difference if somebody sings for you around their audition time in a sample lesson?
It can. I like when they do it before the audition. I think that is nice, but then sometimes the timing doesn't work out and they'll do it after the audition. It's nice I love having a relationship with somebody when they walk in the room and they're like, oh yes, I know you. We've had a lesson together. That was a really positive experience, and you're able to call them by name and greet them and have a certain amount of familiarity with them. I think that's really nice. But if the timing works out to where it has to be after, that's okay too.
Great. What would you say to somebody who knows that they love music and they want to do music while they're in college, but they're not really sure if they should be a music major? Would you recommend that they audition anyway to see if the program is a good fit and to try it on for size?
I would say we have a fairly large amount of students who are double majors, who are exactly in that situation, who maybe not right now, but in the past I know we have, and some really surprising, like we've had a 3 different music/anthropology majors. So, some majors work better. We have as our first guinea pig, we keep calling her, that is majoring in both music and theater. So that to me just seems so smart. But it's a lot more work. But you kind of get the best of all these worlds. I guess you have to sort of know yourself. It's possible to participate in most schools in musical ensembles and that kind of thing, even if you're not a music major, but you're probably not going to get a lot of individual attention the way that you
Right.
would as a music major, and therefore maybe not find that growth, that personal individual growth that happens with some of those one-on-one relationships that you have in the major. I would say, gosh, if music is important to you, find some way to do it, either major in it or find a way to, I mean, that's such a great outlet for you if you're, even in another major, to be able to be part of the choir or to be in a show or something like that. It's just such a great way to meet new people and a great way to feel, if you're a math major, then you can get away from the numbers for a while, or something like that.
Yes, we also have the option of double majoring, but you can also minor in music as well. And so that's I've talked to people that are like, I know that I want to be teaching, and so I want to do education, but music is a really important part of my life. And so they were debating whether to double major or to perhaps, do a minor. And so we just kind of went through like, well, this is what it would look like if you doubled, and this is what it would look like if you minored. This is the amount of classes, and can you tailor it so that it kind of goes into your education focus as well. So there are the 2 options, and how in depth do you want to go as well.
Yeah, I think also just reflect a little bit on what is your apprehension with majoring in music. Like why don't you want to do it? If you're worried about what your career options could be and stuff like that, then that's a conversation to have. And I think many times people can be surprised with how many career options there are in music beyond just performing or teaching. Not that either of those are no good, but there's so many other things in between that you can do as well. But just, I don't know, approaching how you choose your major carefully. Music kind of in most institutions functions backwards from every other major. Most majors, you walk in, you take a lot of general education courses, and then you take your major courses in your junior, senior year. Music functions the opposite way. You start in your major courses right away because you have to start with music theory and history and diction if you're a singer and stuff like that, in order to be able to, in lessons, to really progress through the degree. So with that being said, if you start off as a music major and you're really not committed to it, and then you decide to change to something else, a lot of times that something else is going to end up taking you longer to complete, because most of those music classes that you took aren't necessarily going to transfer to another degree. So I know that kind of sounds a little bit negative, but I think it's important, because I want to see students come to college and be successful and complete a degree, whether it's in music or math or whatever it is that they want to do. And so just think about why you're apprehensive about music and have a conversation with somebody who can help you.
That's wonderful. I know music students, from my experience, music students are often the busiest people on campus and the smartest people on campus and the most inspired and just best people to be around, because we're constantly, it's like a shirt. I have rehearsal, and it's just, I remember just feeling like I fit right in, because I was with those people that just always wanted more and more and more and more of what they wanted to do. And it was just, you also know right away, I think, Travis, to kind of piggyback on that, is you'll know if that's not for you, you'll know right away, and then hopefully you can get right. Also, yeah, there is that thing where, oh my God, if I choose this major, it's going to be my major forever. No, so many people change their major, and colleges make it easy to change. Well, maybe not super easy, but that's wonderful, wonderful advice. Yeah.
But
All right. Oh, go ahead.
the other thing that we have a lot of kind of um, panel discussions sometimes before our auditions with families and stuff. And one of the things that I think a lot of people don't understand about choosing a music major or a theater major is that these are usually the people who sang in the choirs and were in the plays and all that kind of stuff in high school, and that was like their passion and their love, and that's great. When you decide to do that as a profession, it becomes not just what you do for fun. Hopefully it remains fun. That's got to be something that we keep close to our hearts all the time, is that we continue to find the joy in this, and that it is fun and that it is meaningful. But it's work now. It's not just what you it's not your extracurricular. This is what you're devoting your life to now. And so, I hate music theory. I hear that so much. Oh, I hate oral skills, da 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 da. And I'm like, there are classes like that in every profession.
Oh,
I
absolutely.
hated algebra, when
Yeah.
so, but does that mean that you hate all math courses? No. So, but you just kind of have to approach music that way too. Is that there are going to be some of the things that I'm going to be required to learn and do that I don't love learning and doing, but you suck it up and take those classes, and then you will have the privilege of doing all these amazing, wonderful things as a career, by sticking with it. But just that, having that kind of expectation, it's not just going to be the thing that you did for fun after you went to school all day. It's going to be music all day.
That is really great advice, Laurinda,
Super
about
great.
treating it
Yes.
like it's your job. It's not just a hobby or an extracurricular anymore. I remember so many classes in my undergraduate. I was, oh my gosh, we had this class Eurythmics, and I used to dread it. But now I wish that everybody offered it to undergraduate students, because I use it so much in my life. I've got people dancing and clapping and getting really rhythmically secure. So these things that might feel a little bit oof in my undergrad or make you feel a little bit apprehensive, they do serve you in the long run. So speaking of apprehension and things that make us a little bit nervous, say your audition asks for a sight singing or a theory placement.
Oh.
Oh my, oh my. How much is that going to weigh and affect your potential acceptance?
I think that depends on the program. Most places, though, it's really more of a placement. It's really more of an idea to see, like, if you were to be accepted here as a student, what theory and or all skills would you probably end up starting out at, right? Because of course, we always offer the most remedial levels up through more advanced levels. Some students come in with more experience in music theory and all skills, so they're able to start at a more advanced level. Whenever I've required sight reading as well as a theory placement test, and usually that's what it's called. It's like a theory placement test. It's not. It doesn't determine whether or not you actually would be admitted into the program.
So these are not make or break moments.
I think it's valuable if you find yourself there to just say, I'll try. Even if you think, oh my God, I'm going to bomb out in a big, big way, that it means something to me to say, okay, somebody's at least willing to try.
I love
Uh,
that. I will
y-
try.
Yes. Can I ask a question more specifically about like a musical theater program? I remember I was auditioning for the opera graduate program at University of Michigan on the same day that they were holding their undergrad musical theater stuff, which was so competitive. And this troupe of dancers came in and they're like, I just did my vocals. I have to go to my dance audition, and they were so intense. And I'm like, oh, wow, I'm just going to sing my arias and go home, How important is like a triple threat program like that? Like for musical theater, is their dance and their acting? What's the most important one? What's the deal breaker?
For musical theater,
Yes,
music,
specifically for musical theater. Yeah.
I think today you do have to have some kind of proficiency in all those areas.
Mm-hmm.
If you've never had a dance class before you go to your audition for musical theater, I would say go take one somewhere, somehow, so that you can somehow get through a dance call. Um, and if you're a singer and you've never had a voice lesson before, maybe try to find your choir teacher or somebody who will work with you. I mean, and teach you a song that's at appropriate level. Um, I would say prepare in all three of those areas. Um, I don't know what I would say would be a deal breaker.
So I was just clarifying. So it's not like a placement. It would be more from what I observe. It's more of an audition on all three levels, and those are not placements like the theory thing.
I don't.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
It's a different program, and I
Right.
think more and more today, you've got to be able to have some kind of ability to move.
Mm-hmm.
Um, no, I would say none of those areas are not trainable, and if
Right.
you're showing us enough, you know, um, initiative and talent, and you don't know your left foot from your right, I don't think that's going to keep you out of a program.
Got it.
Um,
Yeah.
but in a top tier program, if I would say, yeah, I don't even want to mention specifics.
Yeah.
I would say at least try to explore those areas if you haven't had any experience in them before you
Yeah.
go to audition. You're not going to become an expert at them if you've never done them, but at least just say, I'm going to go, take lessons for a couple months or
Yeah.
dance lessons for a couple months, learn a couple of steps, something like that.
Oh, we just got a
Yeah.
question in the chat. Oh, do you want to do that one? Or Travis, how about you go ahead and we'll get this one in. Okay.
No, I was just gonna say, I think it just depends on the program. Particular musical theater, there are those major programs where you're really going in to train the triple threat. There are other programs who are going to be more voice focused, and probably are programs that are going to be more acting and or dance focused. And so I would look at the requirements for the audition and use that as your barometer, right? To figure out, if it's mostly all about singing, and then there's like you don't actually have to prepare anything for dance, just sort of, all right, we're going to show up and see if you can move a little bit. Then also ask questions if you don't know. And you can also again research the program and see, like, if you look at the curriculum and you see, oh, there's a whole bunch of vocal requirements and very little dance requirements within the program, then probably that's what's going to be most important in the audition. But it depends on the program, I think.
Okay. Very cool.
So we have a question from Jennifer Chow, wanting to know what kind of experience or background that you look for in applicants. Like talking about performing experience, what kind of background is important to you as a teacher for that student to have had, if any?
I think just some musical experience is great. Are you taking advantage of the musical opportunities that have been uh, presented to you in your life, right? Not everybody is going to come to an undergraduate audition having had the opportunity to sing in multiple choirs, or to take private lessons, or to study an additional instrument or anything like that. But like, what opportunities have you had, and have you taken advantage of them? Those I want to know what experiences you have had. There's not really more. I don't really think of like a checklist in mind. I don't have, I just want to hear what you've done, and how has that brought you to this audition? Why are you passionate about this now? Why
I
do you
think,
want to make it your life?
yeah, I think also we all recognize that um, there are kids that are starting to take violin lessons at 2 years old, and piano at 3, and instruments at 5th grade. Um, that doesn't necessarily happen for singers. I think we are having more and more through our NATS chapter, like this chapter, are saying, okay, yeah, that's an important thing, that whatever age you're singing at, that if you have the resources to have lessons and make sure you're doing things in a healthy way, and learning how to progress and to become a singer for life. But we also, I recognize that a lot of these people that come to audition for us have not been singing and studying since they were 5, like a violinist or an instrumentalist, because that would not, I mean, I guess in my opinion, that's not necessarily an appropriate age to start, serious vocal training kind of thing, or unless you've got a child actor or something like that that needs that kind of help. But so we recognize that even in schools, the opportunity, I was shocked when I came to San Diego to realize how many high schools have really big band programs, but no choral.
Oh, yeah, I
So
know.
if you are one of those students, where are you supposed to get your training? And we recognize that, to say, okay, we are looking, I think Travis said it at the beginning, a great deal at potential, probably more so than a piano major or violin major, because we just know most people are not spending that much of their life in serious training as a singer.
Oh,
Katie, we
I think
can't
your
hear
sound
you.
might have blipped out or something. Are you there? Oh, can't hear you.
I'll kind of just chime in
Sure.
while we hear you. I was going to say too, yeah, don't. I know that for our program, if you feel like you haven't had a whole lot of experience, or taking private lessons, or like, it's absolutely fine. I know that we've had a lot of students too that through their churches they've been involved in choirs in their church, or maybe just their worship band, or so that counts, also as a musical experience. And perhaps you play another instrument, or we want to know, if maybe you did a lot of acting, and you're like, we want to know that as well. So, but I wouldn't say that if you, let's say you didn't, if you didn't take lessons, that disqualifies you. I can say for myself, all of my experience was actually just church music growing up, and then in high school when I moved to the States, then I had some choral experience at school, and for 3 years, and then I took my first voice lesson the month before I started school, like to audition. That was why I took my first lesson for college, because I needed to audition with a like an art song of some sort. And so I felt like such a late bloomer. For a long time, I was just like I'm kind of late in the game here. But I'm finding that there's a lot of people that it's like that. It's an introduction, and my experience was just, it was still valid, even though it didn't look the same as everybody who had taken lessons since they were 14, or something like that. So I hope that's helpful to someone out there.
That's really helpful. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay.
That's so helpful. Yeah.
Thanks. Elda, that's super helpful, because I wanted to ask as well, what advice you would give to someone like yourself who perhaps has not had a voice lesson but says, oh my gosh, I am very passionate about music. I know I love it, but I don't have a great choral program at my school. What would you say to that student? How would you advise that they prepare for an audition if they're coming into a college audition with very little musical experience outside of something like church?
Yeah, I would say find there are a lot of resources. Take advantage of that sample lesson. First of all, like just use that and say, hey, I would like some help here as well. There are a lot of resources right now online that you can find as well through NATS as well. And reach out and ask questions. This is where our organization is such a gift, in that you can send an email out and to Carolyne, let's say, and just say, hey, this is my situation. Like, how can I, do you have any resources, or how can I best prepare as well? And honestly, like, if I had no experience, I mean, YouTube is great in terms of like, okay, like just, getting a sense of your feet wet. Yes, you have to know, like, but I would say get yourself in front of a person, a live person that can chime in. You can have some resources in that end, but I would say if you can just get a coaching with someone, that would be great, as well. Ask your friends as well, where word of mouth. Do you know someone who could help me to prepare for my college audition? I really want to do this, or even give me some advice. A lot of people, you'd be surprised how many people were music majors at some point in their life, and they might actually be able to chime in with some of that experience as well, to help you prepare.
We are everywhere, right? We're
Yes.
everywhere. Yeah, that's wonderful. And I think what I hear all of you guys saying is that it's not necessarily what you've done. It's not what you're singing. It's not what you're wearing. It's we want to know about you and what you are passionate about, which I think is such a beautiful thing. So it's not, no, did you have to go to every fancy summer program to get to the grad degree or the undergrad degree? No, it's what makes you tick and why are you here, So I think for me, that's kind of what I'm getting from everything. Do we want to open it up to more questions, or, oh, Katie, it looks like the same thing is happening.
Oh, can you
Oh,
hear me?
wait, you're
Oh,
back.
there you are.
You're back.
Okay. Just because of the delay in my sound picking up, I talked
Okay.
pretty quickly.
Okay.
Yes, I think we should open it up to questions.
Okay.
Yeah.
If anyone has any questions, feel free to unmute and just dive in, or you can continue typing. Anyone have any questions? Is it what's your least favorite audition piece to listen to? Everyone's got one. One time,
Whatever's
funny. Okay, well, go ahead.
I was gonna say whatever's the least prepared. That's my least favorite.
Oh my goodness. I'll never forget. I was auditioning for like a summer program for a young artist opera thing. And I said, I'm going to be singing Batti Batti. And they said, no, you're not. Because they had just heard apparently too many that day. Luckily, I had another option that will not happen in any college auditions. Yeah.
So while we're waiting on questions too, since we've talked about least favorite auditions or least prepared auditions, do you have any great audition stories? Something that happened in the audition room that was completely unexpected, or how someone surprised you, or what took a left turn that you weren't expecting as somebody sitting on the other side of the table?
I have one as a singer. I'm sure we all have one as a singer. I remember thinking that the pianist was going to be so upset with me if I messed up. But the pianist in my undergraduate audition actually dropped my music all over the floor. And she shouted out a curse word. And the whole panel just started laughing. And it was the best thing that could have happened because my song stopped in the middle. I got to start again, and the laughter had broken the room. So these things will happen. I was okay. And what about on the other side? Have there been any things like that?
Josh,
Go ahead, Elda.
I was just going to say, this made me think of get there with plenty of time, to just settle, to get some time in the practice room. It just made me think of audition stories. I got stuck on the elevator at Lyric Opera on my way to my audition, and so that was funny thing is actually the two guys I was stuck there with, one of them was from my hometown in Tijuana, all the way in Chicago. So go figure. But because I had come with a good amount of time in advance, I was still able, after they got us out of the elevator, to settle and get my mind and go in and audition, So just take your time as well. Get there early. Just something I thought of.
I would say the funniest, and I wasn't on the other side of the table, but when I was in grad school, I often was a page turner for the pianist because I could sort of play. And I remember a guy came in and very, very tall guy. And he was obviously from the South, so he had a real Southern accent, and he didn't. We're like backstage saying, "Do you want to go over anything?" No, no, I will build fine. And then he got out there and he said, "I'd like to sing 'No Pew and Dry,'" and played the pianist played the introduction and he didn't sing. And then they played it again and then he didn't sing. And finally, God bless him, one of the faculty members just started to sing along with him. So we could try to get through the piece and everything like that. And then at the very end, he did sing another song and he walked all the way down to the edge of the stage in a relatively big hall. And all of us were like, what's happening? What's he going to do? And he got to the end and he just leaned over and he said, "How'd I do?"
My goodness, that's a great story.
It was. I'll never forget that.
There's always some that stay with you. All right. Okay. Anyone have any? Okay. So questions. It's open to questions. Yeah. Let's see. I have one more. So, like we talked about, is there anything with contemporary voice that needs to be an additional skill? Elda, I guess I'm asking this quick question to you. Like, does improvisation need to be an additional skill in an audition? Or is there anything like dance in musical theater that's tangential?
I would say no.
Okay.
You know, I would keep it simple. I think you can also, with improvisation, you can overdo it. Sometimes if it's like, it's just riffs all over the place and it doesn't stop. And, you know, it's just like you can be tasteful as well. And so just try to be, in that sense, usually you're singing something in the commercial sense that you've heard before, and we all have the recording as an example, and I think this can apply to many things, but I would just say keep it clean, and we just want to get a great sense, going back to what we did we were saying at the beginning, of just your voice, and if it's comfortable for you, it doesn't have to have all this really, really showy, crazy amount of showy things, you know, but just, I would say pick something simple that shows us, you know, if you like to sing high and you like to sing, you know, the lower portion of your range as well. And so I hope that helps. In terms of commercial music, I wouldn't necessarily, I'm still, sometimes what does happen is people sing just stuff that's only low. And I find that I want to hear a little bit of like something that goes up, even if it's a tiny bit, but I can hear it head voice a little bit, or mix. So that's where you can work with your teacher in terms of your song choice, so that it's something that showcases all of that. But I would say kind of don't just, in my opinion, if it's just something that just stays low, 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 low all the time, I usually am like, oh, I wouldn't, but what do they sound if they go?
I know.
Like, what do they sound like if they go up higher? You know, because you can hear the potential sometimes as well, but then sometimes you don't get to hear it. I know I've had some auditions in the last couple of years that I've heard, that's been the experience.
That's really helpful. Yeah, I would love to hear Billie Eilish's full head voice. I think I would have to go see her live and then maybe experience. I've heard she's fantastic live, but you know. Okay, this has just been what a treat to listen to you guys talk about this. What a treat. Katie,
No, I was just gonna
there you
say,
go.
I feel like can you hear me?
Yes.
Just to wrap things up, I wondered if you all have one really important piece of advice. Like, what's the one thing you would offer to someone coming to audition for you? What's that one piece of advice? What is that?
I would say know that most panels that you sing for are also singers, and we're pulling for you. We want you to do your absolute best. We're not sitting there waiting for you to fail. We're looking for great people to come to our schools, and so it may feel like you're up there being really judged, and we might even have like a frown on our face, or we're down writing away and not even looking at you very much. But truly, we are pulling for you. We want to hear your best, and we want to set up in an environment that lets you do that.
Yay. Anyone else?
Yeah, I would say just like be you. Let us meet and see you in this audition. Don't try to be what you think we're looking for, right? Don't try to fit a mold of what you think one of our students would be. Be you in both the audition, the singing portion, as well as in the inevitable conversation that you're probably going to have after the audition, where we ask you if you have any questions and we ask you some questions. Answer truthfully and honestly, and whether that shows off the experiences or the experiences you have had or the experiences you haven't had. We're not looking for one right answer. We're looking for an interesting human who has something to say as an artist and who is dedicated to this craft, right? There is not one right type of student.
So wonderful to hear. Awesome.
For sure. I would say, same, I would echo those sentiments, and in that we were not only simply even looking at just the voice, you know, it's we have a voice as a person. It's like a holistic aspect as well, and we want to get to know you. We're not kind of just sitting like, well, you know, prove to me, you know. No, it's just we've been where you are. We understand the vulnerability and that it entails, and also the courage that it entails to come and stand in front of a panel of people. And I told students, like, we're honored to get to hear you today. Like, we're excited as well. And so in terms of, sometimes we can think of it as, oh, it's almost like you're going into a room full of enemies, you know, of just like feeling like this, and rather, you know, or just, I would say, no, think of us, we are for you as well. We're rooting as well for you. And we want to see you thrive, and we want to be helping you thrive in our environment. So yeah, think of it in that way. I know sometimes it's very tempting to think of it the other way, but we're actually, you know, there to cheer you on.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Yes, this was just so fantastic. Thank you, every single one of you, for taking this time. And I know I feel, you know, energized and ready to take these things back to my students. So yeah.
So big thank you to Travis and Elda and Laurinda. We are honored, San Diego NATS, to have your expertise and your experience to share with our San Diego singing community. So thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing so much wonderful information.
Well,
Thank you all
I
so
also
much.
want to say, as somebody who's been in San Diego and on San Diego NATS chapter for so long, how grateful we are as a membership to have you guys at the helm, and you're just doing such great work. And I know that it's a lot of times thankless work, and thank you guys so much for carrying on.
Oh, well, it's so much fun, and we, you know, from my own perspective, kind of, I'm like, well, what does that job look like? And it's like, well, it looks like a lot of really amazing people who you get to talk to all the time, and I just getting to know Katie has been amazing. So it's a absolute honor and a pleasure, and it's just wonderful. Yeah. All right, everyone. So kumbaya. This has been wonderful. I'll send the recording to everyone. It was live streaming on Facebook. I don't think it'll stay, but I hope we answered some questions, and wahoo. So go get them, everyone.
Go forth and be courageous and sing.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Signing off. Thank you so much, everyone, again. All right, have a lovely
Bye.
evening.
Thank you.
Bye. See ya.